The death of George Floyd has sparked a movement in terms of ending police brutality. And as part of that debate, there's been talk of defunding local police. Our Kanisha D spoke with local leaders. She has reaction from them.
There's been a rally cry during protests to defund the police in the wake of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Many interpretations include using some of those fundings to go towards community programs. Here's what some local leaders had to say.
They need funding to operate, to do the things that they do. However, but what needs to happen is a reprioritization of the funding that they receive.
Alabama State Conference NAACP President Bernard Simulton believes the funding for military equipment is not needed, but if used, police officers should be trained. He also believes money should be invested into sensitivity training.
When they learn to deal with different cultures, different backgrounds, the way people think, the way people act, they need to be trained on that.
United Women of Color Executive Director Angela Curry says she's neutral on the matter as she learns more information. However, she believes the community would be safer if healthcare professionals respond to mental health calls.
I feel as if more monies need to be diverted toward mental health care, and so that mental health care professionals can go out and go out on calls versus having law enforcement to go out on calls. And I think that that will be safer for the entire community.
She's also a part of the newly formed group Citizens Coalition of Criminal Justice Reform. The group has been focused on other matters concerning law enforcement and isn't able to weigh in on defunding police. However, for now, they are doing their homework.
We need to make sure that we have a wide enough body of research and also look at best practices where that would have happened.
Last year, about $33 million went towards the Madison County Sheriff's Office. That was about more than half the county's budget. Putting the Valley first, Kanisha D, WZDX News.